Welcome, welcome. I'm John, and you're starting to think about getting that wine collection going. So maybe you've had a few special bottles, you're intrigued by the idea of investing in wine. Whatever the current thinking, let's talk about how to start collecting wine the right way, avoid all the mistakes I made, and let's learn from everybody who came before you, okay? So I've been doing this for a number of years, and yeah, I've taken formal wine classes, and I've taken certifications, stuff like that, but no, I'm not a sommelier. I'm just a lawyer, I'm an investor, I just like wine a lot. Today, let's talk about results of my experience, talk about my advice, how to do this the right way. Before we get into the how, let's talk about the why. So people collect wines for a variety of reasons. They like to enjoy fine wines at their peak maturity, investment purposes, always have that perfect bottle for a special occasion to explore and learn about wine, and just for the joy of having a collection. And so your why is going to help determine your strategy, your budget, your storage needs, but let me give you a hint as to what shouldn't be your primary why for investment purposes. So I remember as a young kid growing up, I would have this baseball card collection, and I would love to buy and sell baseball cards and flip them, and that act was the main part of the collection for me. It was the excitement. Now the problem with wine is that it takes so long to accumulate and for it starting to age and to hit the market correctly that ultimately that shouldn't be your number one goal. So if your point is to purchase wine to get involved in the marketplace, probably not the best idea. But the good news is if you buy it well, generally it'll go up in value. And although there's been a recent downturn, for the most part, rich people like wine. People keep drinking it, and every time somebody drinks a bottle, there's less of that particular vintage and the value goes up. So in short, you're allowed to collect for investment purposes, but you really need to enjoy drinking the wine. And that really is the main point. That is, at least for me, the greatest source of joy. Critical, proper storage. Wine is a perishable good, and without proper storage, you're just wasting your money. So a few things: temperature, about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Avoid fluctuations in temperature, and never let that wine sit above 70 degrees. Humidity, 70% is ideal. You don't want mold to grow, right? So more than 90% doesn't work, less than 50% the cork starts drying out. And so there are a lot of options. You get a little refrigerator, you could build a home cellar, or you get professional storage. But as a starting point, just get a good wine fridge. And as your collection grows, you'll find options in the professional storage side too. So a little bit different buying strategies depending where you are looking. So for Napa Valley, those most sought after producers, you gotta get on the mailing list. And so first, I would just recommend you sign up for the following mailing lists: Screaming Eagle, Harlan Estate, Scarecrow, 100 Acre, Bryant Family, Colgin, Bond. And what's important about these is you are not obligated to buy the wines, but they have multi-year waits sometimes. And so getting on is crucial. And you could always decline any allocation, and sometimes you could just buy a starting offering. But getting on these lists as you're thinking about it is helpful, just because at least you're in line. By the way, even if you're not expecting to kind of go pro and to buy things like that, it's easy enough just to decline the offer. A little different in France. So the European fine wine market works differently. So here we have in Premier, futures in English. Basically you're buying it through established merchants before it's actually in the bottle. So in Bordeaux, the wines are offered about 2 years before delivery. They work with their established merchants, and the prices, not always, but usually are advantageous to you. And you also know you're getting it directly from the winery, perfect provenance. You do need a trusted advisor as you get into these types of wines. Burgundy, even trickier, very relationship driven. There's much, much smaller productions than Bordeaux, which is more, of a mass-produced item. So you've got to build your relationships, and you really, really have to learn a lot about it because they're also really expensive. So let's talk about relationships. The first stop in your journey is your local wine shop. Just get to know them, and they're going to get to know your palate. They're gonna hold special bottles for you. They're gonna give you good advice, and they are going to be the ones who are discovering new wines. They are drinking the most, right, of anybody. You also will have, with larger merchants, you're gonna have account managers if you're a serious collector. You're gonna have access to certain allocated wine, early access to buy, and then you'll have some portfolio advice. So I recommend kind of a two-tier strategy. One, build a strong relationship with the local shop, and then second, start develop your connections with the larger merchants. All right, staying informed. There are critical information sources as you're going along. You're gonna have your essential subscriptions. Here's a few, okay? You have Berghound, which is Alan Meadows' review of Burgundy. This is essential in Burgundy. He's very conservative with his scoring, by the way, but he has really detailed producer profiles. He is just the go-to. Wine Advocate, which is Robert Parker, which is really strong for Bordeaux in California, Napa wines. They tend to have higher scores. Vinius, Antonio Galloni, and they have all these maps and other analysis. He's really good with Italian wines. He also does Burgundy. And then Wine Independent, which is the newest major publication. They don't have any advertising, and it really is just another resource. So you're going to be reading your vintage reports, you're going to be comparing multiple sources, you're going to be comparing the tasting notes even more than the scores, and then you're going to understand the scoring system for each of them. So I read these all the time, and I'm just kind of ingesting the information about what people in the wine world are talking about, what critics who have kind of the same taste profile as I have, what they have to say. But I'm just paying attention to the notes, really, more than the scores. I'm also learning about any changes the winemakers are making as time goes by. It might be something you're not going to see for a decade, or by the time you taste the wine for 20 years. I'm just trying to get the most information so I'm able to put my money in the things that I want. Let's go back to the why. So I'm assuming that you actually enjoy wine, and you're going to need to start drinking more. Not that way, but you're going to have to start tasting more. So anytime there's an event out there, you need to go, you need to taste as many wines as possible. And the intention is developing your own taste and also to find out what you really like. So I'm going to use Colgin as an example. I tried a few of their wines, but never their flagship wine, which is Colgin 9. It's written Colgin IX in Roman numerals. But this is a bottle I would pay $600 for. You'd probably get it for $750. If you go to a restaurant, it's probably $1,250 bottle of wine. So, and actually tried it, right? Because it's expensive. So I decided to go to a high-end tasting. I had it against 100 Acre, a Screaming Eagle. And did I pay a fortune for this tasting? Of course I did. But now that I know if I really want a high-end wine, that I love that Colgin 9. So it's a very valuable wine. I know that I could sell it for more than I'm paying for it, but I also met some great people at the tasting, so it's just great. I even do business with one of them. So those events are really, really important because you're developing your palate, you're refining your tastes, you're discovering wines, you're even meeting some new friends along the way. So listen, starting your wine collection, it's more than a one-day event. It is about beginning modestly, focus on getting your storage right, and just start reading and learning. Start small, think about the longer term, and then focus on quality rather than just pure quantity. Build your relationships, stay informed, join those mailing lists, but most importantly, just make it fun. Make it part of your social life, make it part of your day-to-day, and you'll see that you will start to enjoy so much more the act of collecting when it is both something social and both something that you enjoy. And along the way, you might actually make a few bucks too.